All right, today we've got a really fascinating legal puzzle for you. It's this classic showdown, one determined homeowner versus his HOA. And it all starts with what should have been a super simple home improvement project. But oh boy, it spirals into this crazy battle over crossed out notes, really confusing forms, and what the word approved actually means. And that really is the million-dollar question here. So let me introduce you to our homeowner, Ellsworth Pontius. He's living in a community in Arizona, and all he wants to do is something totally normal. Install a standard evaporative cooler to, beat the crazy heat. Sounds simple enough, right? Yeah, not so much. So let's set the scene. It's June 2006. Mr. Pontius sends in his application to the community's architectural review committee. This should be the easy part, right? Just a formality. Well, this is exactly where the paper trail and all the confusion really kicks off. So right off the bat, things get a little weird. The committee asks him to resubmit his application, but on a new form. And you got to look closely here, because there's a really subtle but super important change. See, the old form had this option for approved as noted. So they could say, yes, but with these conditions. The new form? Nope. It only has two boxes, approved or disapproved. That's it. It's a simple yes or no, and believe me, that little detail is going to become a huge deal. A little bit later, Mr. Pontius gets the new form back in the mail. And there it is, a nice, clean check mark right in the box next to approved. Now, for you or me, that would be it, right? Case closed. Time to get the contractor on the phone. But nope, this was just the beginning of the headache. Because when he takes a closer look at the comments section, wow, what a mess. There's a handwritten note that says option #1 only, #2 disapproved. But then that's just scribbled out, completely crossed out. Then there's a new note added that says it's only approved with walls surrounding evaporative cooler. So what is it? Is it a yes, a no, maybe? It's anybody's guess. And just to pile on the confusion, the diagrams he sent in with his application came back covered in some very clear, very bold red ink. It looks like the committee had a lot of feelings on the matter, and they decided to express them all over his carefully drawn plans. Okay, so let's really dig into these documents, because this is where the whole case lives or dies. We need to figure out what exactly the committee actually approved, and what they completely rejected. So Mr. Pontius had proposed two different spots for his cooler. Now, on the diagrams, the committee left zero room for interpretation. They literally pointed an arrow to the 24-foot location and wrote, approved location. But for his other choice, the 12-foot option, they circled it, crossed it out, and wrote, this location disapproved in big, bold letters. So the form itself was a total mess, but the diagrams, they seemed pretty crystal clear. Okay, so after getting all this confusing paperwork back, Mr. Pontius realizes he's got a problem. Turns out there are some built-in cabinets inside his garage that make the so-called approved 24-foot location totally impossible. So he figures, well, the main form said approved, so I'm just going to go with my preferred spot. He installs the cooler at the 12-foot location, and almost instantly, bam, he gets a violation notice from the HOA. And this is the point where Mr. Pontius decides no way. He's not backing down. He truly believed the HOA was flat out wrong, and his entire argument was based on pure, simple logic and the very form the HOA made him use. I mean, his whole argument was pretty straightforward. He said, look, you gave me a form with only two choices. If you didn't like my plan, you should have checked disapproved. He argued that by checking that approved box, they approved his entire application, full stop. And from his point of view, all those messy notes and murked up diagrams didn't matter compared to that one official checkmark. But as you can probably guess, the HOA saw things completely differently. Their entire defense was that their own rules gave them the power to give more detailed feedback than just a simple yes or no. The HOA went straight to their rulebook, to their declaration, and they pointed to this specific section, which basically says the committee can point out things that don't conform to the rules and make suggestions. They argue that this little piece of text gives them the right to say yes, but, to grant conditional approvals, no matter what the simplified form looked like. For them, the notes and the diagram markings were the real approval. So what we have here are two totally different interpretations. On one side, you've got the homeowner, focused on the literal words on the form he was given. And on the other, you've got the HOA, focused on the spirit and intent of their governing documents. The whole thing ends up in front of an administrative law judge. So, who do you think won? Well, the judge came down on the side of the homeowners association. The petition that Mr. Pontius filed,
it was denied. So, despite that super confusing form, the judge found that the HOA was totally within its rights.
Now, the judge's reasoning is really interesting. He actually admitted the committee's response was, and I quote, sloppy perhaps, but he said it wasn't ambiguous. He felt that the markings on the diagrams were unequivocal, no question about it. They disapproved the 12-foot location. The judge also agreed with the HOA that their rules did in fact allow for these kinds of conditional approvals. And finally, he made a broader point, that in a community like this, everyone is expected to have a spirit of mutual cooperation. He basically said Mr. Pontius should have called them up and asked for clarification before just going ahead with the installation.
But hold on, because the story doesn't quite end there. And this is the real kicker. Sometime after the judge made his decision, the HOA actually passed a new design guideline. And what did this new guideline do? You guessed it. It specifically authorized cooler installations at the 12-foot location, the exact spot Mr. Pontius had fought for and lost over. So after all that time, money, and stress, his installation would now be perfectly fine. How ironic is that?
You know, this whole case just perfectly highlights a really fundamental tension. When you're faced with sloppy paperwork and conflicting messages, what should carry more weight? The literal text on a form, the letter of the law, or the spirit of cooperation that's needed to figure out what people actually mean? It's a great question, and honestly, there's no easy answer.